digital form. Welcome back. You're with us here on CNBC-TV18. We are starting closing bell half an hour early, and we've got the entire closing bell team here. Reema, hi. Surabhi, hi. Nigel, welcome back.
Long haul, Prashant? Good going.
But it's, this is the definition of the interim budget, right? I mean, it's actually just, in a way, a hand-holding exercise until, of course, the big one comes through in the month of July. Markets have been very well-behaved, no real big volatility. They've been quiet. I mean, 15 points lower as we speak on the Nifty, 21,710. We'll discuss more markets, stocks, etc. in a bit here. But let me go straight across to Mr. Amitabh Kant, who's the G20 Sherpa and the former CEO of Niti Aayog, who's joining us with his reaction to the budget and what we've heard. Mr. Kant, good afternoon. Great to have you with us here, sir. Prashant this side. Your first thoughts, first impressions of what you've heard. Many were thinking that this is going to be, a full-fledged kind of a budget. I think that view was in the minority. Most thought this will be interim, and we've got exactly that. So I have two questions. One, do you think what we've heard will be continued through in the big budget in July, or will we see big changes? And two, what are your first thoughts on what we've heard? Capital expenditure, spending growth, and of course, the fiscal deficit and the consolidation we've seen there. Go on, sir.
So, Prashant, I think it's a budget by a government which is demonstrating confidence that it will come back. And also, it's a budget by a government which believes in fiscal discipline. So I was quite impressed by the fact that it's talking about fiscal deficit at 5.1% and then bringing it down, laying down a clear roadmap for 4.5% the subsequent year. And I think that's really critical because that would really mean that government will borrow less, interest rates should come down, the private sector should be able to access resources at a much lower rate of interest. We should be able to kickstart private sector investment in a much bigger way. I think those are all critical messages to be sent out, and I think this demonstrates a huge level of fiscal discipline. Also, the fact that, from 2013-14, from 1%, it has taken the capex to about 3.3%, and now this year to 3.4%. Now, government has done its bit in terms of capex spend, and my view on that is that we should now crowd in private sector investment into infrastructure as well. And that will be important because if you want productive efficiency in the economy, if you want good private-public partnership, if you want good operation, good design, good execution, you need to bring in private sector in a big way, and that's important in all sectors, including, we need private sector to come into areas like railways also. And I think that, to my mind, is a clear signal that government wants private sector to come in over a longer period of time. And the third is this clear messaging that which to my mind is very important, that if you want the country to grow at rapid rates, then you need the states to improve. And a lot of reforms now need to be driven by the states. So if you're putting in 75,000 crores saying that this is linked to reforms, and you are going to give money for infrastructure creation if you carry out reforms, it's a big message, and it's all milestone based. So it's incentivizing the states to push for reforms. And if the eastern part of India, which is talked about, if the eastern part of India can really avail of the 75,000 crores, they will really kickstart infrastructure in a big way. And I think the focus on the 1 lakh crore for R&D for the private sector, that will be critical. But, one point I want to make, which is about yesterday, the finance ministry reducing the duties on a vast range of items which are used for mobiles. Mobile manufacturing, a range of items, the duty rates have been brought down yesterday. And I think that'll make India a very, very competitive in the global value chain, which is to make India a leading manufacturing nation for export of mobiles from India. And that is a good move, to my mind. And So these are my few comments.
Mr. Kant, good afternoon, sir. Great to have you on the program. Just to press that point a little further, Atmanirbharta and manufacturing, make in India. I was speaking to, a couple of members of industry and the tax circles, and I think one surprise was that while the sunset dates on several, tax exemptions were increased, for instance, GIFT City, etc., that all-important 15% concessional tax rate for new manufacturing units, that was actually not increased. So I just want your perspective on how we should read this. There's a lot of talk about Viksit Bharat, becoming a developed economy by 2047, but no specific new announcements or no big mention on manufacturing. I mean, schemes like PLI, etc. So is it just because it was a vote on account and maybe we'll hear more big bang stuff in July? Is that how we should interpret this?
Yeah, I think you should wait for a long-term budget. This is an interim budget, and I think it's truly an interim budget. It's not the main budget, so I think you should wait for that. And that's why not too many giveaways in terms of taxes, etc. I think we should wait for the longer budget. Don't have too many, don't pin your too much hopes on too many policy announcements at this stage. This is a very good interim budget. This is an outstanding interim budget to my mind.
Absolutely, and very crisp, very short. And on a side note, we were planning for almost a 2-hour budget speech, so we had to change up as well. Mr. Kant,
so the speech was truly designed for an interim budget, and
absolutely.
I think it's hit all the right notes for an interim budget, and I think you should wait. You don't expect too much. Wait for the long-term budget, but I think as an interim budget, it's an outstanding budget.
And I absolutely agree with you. Mr. Kant, just to one quick point on divestment. It's come up again and again. I mean, I think the RE has been revised to 30,000 and the budgeted estimate is 50. This is as good a time as any. I mean, maybe the best time for the government to collect funds. And many in the market believe, well, will we see that in a big way? And why not in the first year of the new term? Yeah.
No, I totally agree that I'm a great believer that if the country's productive efficiency has to improve, if India has to grow at higher rates, and incidentally, my view on this, on the nominal growth rates, is that it's very moderate rates have been put into the interim budget, and probably we'll end up faring better. But my view on this is very clear, and I've been a long-term advocate of the fact, as the Prime Minister has been advocating that it's not the government's job to be in businesses, except a few areas. Government should disinvest, government should do asset monetization in a bigger way. All this helps to bring in private sector, and I'm a believer that private sector brings in greater productive efficiency in the long run. In the interim period of the last 3 to 4 years, government has created a lot of infrastructure, but it should, in a transparent, competitive manner, put it out for private sector to bid and do operation and maintenance. A lot of more disinvestment should kick in in the coming years, and that will bring in, because the government will get the right values. This is the best time to get the right values. Otherwise, and it'll bring in great efficiency into the economy. In long term, if you have to look at a 2047 vision, it's very clear that private sector will have to play a far more critical role.
Mr. Kant, while in the speech there was a focus on women, youth and farmers, etc., and even the rural economy, but we haven't seen big measures which can boost consumption, particularly at the rural end, which some people in the market find surprising considering we are in an election year. How would you respond to that?
Well, I'm not a great believer in a consumer-led growth story. I'm a great believer in infrastructure-led growth story. It takes a little more time, but in the long run, that's what drives the economy. over a long, if you're looking at 2047, if you want to get into 9 to 10% growth rates over a long period of time. I mean, many countries of the world have done it. There are challenges in the global economy. But the only way for India to grow on a sustained basis is infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure. And that will create rural demand. I mean, if you're going to create roads in rural areas, if you're going to put electric buses in rural areas, if you're going to provide rural houses, which the budget does, if you're going to do a rural solar rooftop, if you're going to provide piped water connection in rural areas, if you're going to do toilets in rural areas, whom will it benefit? It will benefit the rural population. It should all be infrastructure-led, which will create great consumer demand in due course. And that is how the country will grow in the long run. So don't get into this bogey of creating artificial consumer demand.
That's put forward forcefully, as always. Mr. Kant, just one last question from my side. You wear so many hats. You're so involved with the industry on so many in different industries, really. Will we see, private participation in infrastructure spending picking up in a big way? I mean, can you see telltale signs of that? Your thoughts, sir?
I think post-election, you will see, after this government comes back, you will see a lot of more private sector. Private sector investment is going to kick in a big way. I mean, you can see all clear signals of that. And capacity utilization is at a good high. Interest rates will come down. There's good consumer demand. I only wish that the global scenario also improves, and you will see long-term private sector investment. We should put out many more roads, many more projects, well-structured, fully de-risked. After taking all approvals, we should put those SPVs out into the markets for private sector to bid for, and you will see good demand. I mean, move over to a lot of more well-structured, well-cleared, well-defined infrastructure projects, and you will see very good bidding for those projects.
Okay. Mr. Kant, so then to wrap it up with final thoughts, I'm going back to what the finance minister was saying in the speech when she outlined some of the key priority, pillars for this government, for Prime Minister Modi, where she mentioned Garib, Mahila, Yuva, and the Annadata. As we look over to the concept of the Viksit Bharat, and she said that the next 5 years will be years of unprecedented growth, and that fills us with a lot of hope. How do you think the priorities will shift, if at all?
No, I've worked with this government for a very long time, and this government actually believes in inclusive growth. It believes in cutting across all segments. It doesn't, when you're implementing schemes on ground, and I did the aspirational district program with this government, it doesn't look at any particular section, it doesn't look at caste, it doesn't look at religion, it doesn't look at creed. It believes in saturating a scheme at the grassroots level. So if you're saturating all schemes at grassroots level, you're making a dent on poverty. And that's why, the multidimensional poverty index shows that 25 million people, such a vast segment of 25 crore people have got lifted above poverty line, because you've actually taken all the government schemes and actually saturated them at grassroots level. So the level of implementation has just been enormous. I mean, it's been phenomenal level of execution on ground at the grassroots level of all the central schemes, and that has made a difference to the lives of citizens. And I think we should continue to just do that. Have schemes which get fully implemented. And the power of digitization has really helped us. The benefit of that has been just enormous in terms of better quality implementation on ground, because the leakages have been very few now. I mean, there's just no leakage. Everything is reaching the actual beneficiary.
All right, Mr. Kant, we appreciate you joining in here on CNBC-TV18 and giving us your first thoughts on the budget. Looking forward to chatting up with you rather soon.
Thank you.
Well, for the markets, as